We just finished asking on Yud Aleph from the Beis that there's a seemingly double contradiction between Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. We had the case where Rabbi Yehuda bar Chanina was quoted by Rish Lakish that if you have this, plated, interwoven kind of vine that you spread around the four corners, where it works for Klayim, it does not work for Shabbos, according to Rish Lakish, according to Rish Lakish's quote of his Rebbe, and Rabbi Yochanan says, double no. So they both changed one level from the original position. According to the original position, Rish Lakish said double yes, Rabbi Yochanan said one yes and one no, and here everybody moves Machmir one position. So what exactly is the difference between the earlier case and this case? So Bishlema, that's we're up to Bishlema. So 3 lines from the top and Yud Aleph from the base. So Bishlema, Rish Lakish, Ad Rish Lakish, Kasha. The fact that in the original case Rish Lakish said double yes, and here he only gives a single yes to climb and not to mechitzos, you can argue Hadi De Hadi Rabbe. You can give a very simple answer. The fact that Rish Lakish said double yes earlier, now he's saying only a single yes, it could be because he's quoting his Rebbe. His Rebbe different, but we know many times that just because your Rebbe says one thing does not automatically mean you're going to fall in line. When you become an Amora, you might have your own opinion, and that was this last statement was in the name of Yehuda Rabbi Chanina, and the original statement was in the name of Rish Lakish himself, and therefore there's no contradiction. Hadi de Hadi Rabbi Elul Rabbi Yochanan Kasha, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, where there is no room to say one's not him, they're both him. How could you explain the difference between the early case and this case? So if you're going to tell me that maybe the difference would be, as we try to present, that there the Tzurza Pesach was on top of you tied the vine to the top of the pole the way you should have. And that's why they were valid, at least when it comes to Klayim. Hacham and Atzad Shapir, but over here, where Rabbi Yochanan gives a double thumbs down, it could be when you tied the things from the side, okay, not from the top, as you see right there. That diagram shows you that you're not dealing with vines that are on top of the pole, but rather from the sides. So if you learn from the sides, well, then it's a double negative, and now Rabbi Yochanan will be very good. But if you're going to tell me that they're both talking about cases from the side, which is what we wanted to say, remember, because we wanted to show support for the fact that if it was more than 10, Rabbi Yochanan said no, and then we knocked out by saying, no, the case is not when it's more than 10, the case is when it's from the side, okay? If both cases are from the side, Michael Meimer, then what are you going to argue? One case, it's only a single no, and here it's a double no. If it's the exact same case, we've got a contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yochanan. Michael Meimer, so Gemara says no. Don't try to go back to the original assumption and say that there it was talking about when it was straight, above. When it was positioned properly. No, both cases are positioned improperly. They're both from the side. It says, Leolam, one more time, Lolam, Idi Minatzat, second white line of the Gemara. So what's the difference? Hasam be'eser, hacha be'yosem yeser. The answer is that when you do it from the side, even there, it depends whether it's 10 amis or more than 10 amis separating from one another. And a lechi that's tied with a Tzurza Pesach that is tied up from Minatzad, believe it or not, will actually work by Klayim if it's 10 or less. If it's more than 10, which is like a double negative, you did it from the side and you have more than a 10 opening, that's when it's a no on both ends. But when it's only a no on one end, then actually by Klayim it'll work. So Hasam be Eser. Here it was 10, there, not here. The Hasam there, in the case where Rabbi Yochanan split the difference and said Shabbos no and Klayim yes, was talking about an opening of 10 or less. But here in the double negative case where both were thumbs down, was talking about a case where it was more than 10. If it was more than 10, then you've got you've got nowhere to go, and nothing is good because you've got it tied from the side, and it's not within. It's not 10 or less. Okay, let's take a look at Rashi.
I understand about the source of Pesach for Shabbos, but the side for the vines for the climb. What's wrong with that?
Well, remember we said that you had to divide, you had to separate the grain from the vine in planting. So you have to have a fence between them in a perfect world. In a somewhat less than perfect world, you can have a Tzuras Pesach that separates them, and that is considered a demarcation that allows you to plant on one side one grain and climb and vines on the other side.
So the only exception for climb, even though it's not necessarily for Shabbos purposes, is
two different worlds.
The vine still has to be on top.
Well, if you want to make a separation, right? In other words, you don't have the bricks for a wall to do it that way. It's Stockton. People just don't have the cash there to build those walls. So what do you do to be able to plant wheat on one side and vines on the other? You make the Tzuras Pesach. You make this flimsy on the right. This 342, 142. You make the dargam on the right, which saves you a lot of brick and a lot of time, and you make it to separate them. So, in other words, you at the end of the day, you can't just plant vines and wheat together, side by side, right? So with the Aleph and the Bays, right, we had this on Friday. Right. So were you allowed to, if you, in order to be allowed to plant something in the Aleph and another thing on the Bays, you need a separation. This Tzuras Pesach is that separation, which is pretty amazing because you can see right through it. It doesn't look like a separation, but that's what a Tzuras Pesach does. It makes it like an opening that's not that's an enclosure. It's an enclosure, even though you can see through it. It's in a sense a valid wall.
Would that work also for Shabbos, according to some opinions? Then?
Well, it depends. If it's 10 or less, for sure it'll work for Shabbos. And if it's more than 10, it'll work according to people other than Rav, who said more than 10 won't work, and we clearly hold that it does work. Tzuras Pesach more than 10. That's so what we do.
On the side, forget it. It's just not. It's out totally.
Well, that's now we're saying it's machlokes of Yochanan Shlokish. If you do it on this with the side, then it'll be out for Shabbos. Yeah, we don't do it. And bottom line, it seems like it's definitely not a great way to go for Shabbos.
And I was saying 144 would be okay if it's less than 10.
144.
That's when it's on the side.
We'll say according to Rabbi Yochanan, right? That the case where he said by Klayim.
Right.
No.
144 is so slanty. That doesn't work.
No, it's minat sad. Right. When it's more than 10, it doesn't work for anything, right. And when it's less than 10, it'll work for Klayim. Right. Correct. 10 or less will work for Klayim.
Even though it's slanty like that on 144.
Yeah, I don't think he meant to make it slanty. That's.
He's just showing that it's not going on
right.
top of the pole.
You happen to know,
the side of the pole.
Apparently Sephardim don't hold by the Eruv for carrying on Shabbos. So they don't write any Eruvs. But do they hold for Klayim? It's sort of set up.
I would imagine they do, but you have to really get back to the source of why, is the root in the Rambam, is the root in, I think the Rambam sheet...
Is it a Rashi versus Rambam or something like that?
Could be. I think the Sfarim generally quote the Rambam. When we don't use an Erev, the Ashkenazim, the Yeshiva world doesn't use an Erev, it's not for the same reason that the Sfarim don't use an Erev. Because the Ashkenazi, or, the basic Yeshiva world, their chumr is that we're machmer, the Mishabur indicates that there is a very good reason to be machmer to say that you need that any Rosh Hashanah of 16 amos or bigger is a Rosh Hashanah, and therefore you couldn't make an Erev. Everyone is relying on the 600,000 opinion, and that's who makes an Erev. So that's one reason not to go with an Erev in Rosh Hashanah, these big Erevs, because of what happens if it's not 600? Let's say you hold like the other opinion that Rosh Hashanah is less, and even less than 600,000, as long as it's a wide street and it's a busy street, that makes it like a Rosh Hashanah as well. So for that reason, but I think the Rambam sheet is that he doesn't go for Tzuras Pesach altogether. This whole idea of surrounding,
So they wouldn't go for this for Klayim. This one.
So I mean, for Klayim it could be they would. I don't know.
That's fair answer.
Yeah. I guess would be woodwork, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so let's Rashi's Hadarabe. That's what up to in Rashi's Hadarabe. Second line from the top. Hadarabe Hach Basraisa Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Bar Chanina Amra. The second statement was said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Chanina. It wasn't his own opinion. V'lei lo sirlei, and he was Shlokish person. He doesn't hold of it, so he's aligned properly. He has no problem with. There's no contradiction in his world. There's two different people ultimately holding those opinions. But in Rabbi Yochanan, we got an issue. So, if you're going to tell me that in the first case where it was where Rabbi Yochanan split the difference and said it was good for Klaim and not good for Shabbos, and it was talking about a case where the vine was on top of the pole, Mishum Hachi, Charlene and Klaim. That's why he said it was okay for Klaim. Rabbi Yosef Me'eser, and it was more than 10. The Be'eser lo motzil meimar. Because if it was exactly 10 or less, okay, you couldn't say Avalo b'Shabbos. Because why not? There's no way Rav would reject a Tzuras of Pesach of less than 10 for Shabbos. So I didn't look at it recently, but if that's the issue, more than 10, if let's say the Rambam learned like Rav and said more than 10 you can't make a Tzuras of Pesach, then all Eruvs are basically done. The Eruvs that we make, it wouldn't block an Eruv from a backyard. But any Eruv more than 10, so again, for Klayim, I guess you'd be asking, your question would have been, what would he say by Klayim more than 10? It seems from this Gemara, Klayim more than 10 would be okay. So, could be that, they would, I think that is the issue. If that is the issue, then clearly there is a distinction. Right? So it can't be less 10 or less, because if it was 10 or less, then Rabbi Yochanan would never say no for Shabbos. And therefore, the only way to explain it was more than 10. If it was more than 10, clearly he holds like Rav that a Tzuras of Pesach more than 10 does not work. And that would have been a very good explanation. We don't really want to go there. We don't want to buy into that because we've been rejecting the notion of aligning Rabbi Yochanan with Rav. So basically we came back with another answer that maybe both cases are from the side. There is no case where the vine is mamish on top the way it should be. It's from the side, and Rav makes a distinction between more than 10 and less than 10 when it comes to, if it was more than 10, and by Klayim it's good, by Klayim it's good, and by Shabbos it's not good. Okay. Uminot Tamra, so let's see here. Right, so there when Rav bought into it for Klaim was by 10. Here, this is Rabbi Yochanan's position. If it was more than 10, then he makes a double negative because he says no on both, because A, it's from the side, and B, it's more than 10. So when you get a double negative, Rav said thumbs down to both Shabbos and Klaim. Okay, so now we're ready for the Gemara. Back to the Gemara, second wide line. So wait a minute. So now we're making a distinction in the world of Klayim, or in the world of Tzuras HaPesach, between something from the side more than 10 or less than 10. Uminot Taimra, Deshanilan Ben Esel Yosem Yeser. And how do you know that there's such a distinction like that? Where do you get this idea that you can make a distinction that when it's from the side and it's less than 10, then it's good. If it's from the side and more than 10, then it's not good. So where's that come from? So I'll tell you where it comes from. So one more time. I'll tell you how. Rabbi Yochanan answered back when they were fighting back and forth on this whole vine thing with the Klayim. So Rabbi Yochanan told Rish Lakish, Lo kach hayamaisa, wasn't there a story like this that should indicate like me? Shalach Rabbi Yeshua etz Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri l'lmod Torah, where Rabbi Yeshua went to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri to learn from him. Alpha pisha baki bilchas Klayim, even though indeed Rabbi Yeshua was a baki bilchas Klayim, and you can know something very, very well, but you still want to gain from the leaders of your generation. You want to check things out with the best and the biggest. And Rabbi Yeshua wanted to check things out with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So he went to visit Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. These are Tanoim here. And he found Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, not your typical scene in today's world where you find Gedolim sitting in their, in the base medrash or in their apartments in Bnei Brak or Yerushalayim. He found them out in the field. And what's a shosha ben ilanos? He was sitting amongst the trees, umosach zemura me'ilon le'ilon, and he was grabbing and draping that vine from tree to tree, okay, in order to justify his client, making sure his client was not a problem, okay. And he said, Rebbe, igafanim kan, okay, if you have gefanim on one side as he draped his Tzuras Pesach along the side, igafanim kan maluzra kan. Based on what you just did, if I want to plant vineyards on one side, can I plant wheat on the other side? Exactly the issue that you raised this morning, Gary. So that's exactly the issue. Can I go ahead right on the other side of that string? I don't have a real wall. Can I plant on the other side? And Amalai, what did Rabbi Yochanan Menuri answer back to Bishua? He said, "Be'esem what to be osem yeser aser." It depends. If you do it within a framework of 10 or less, then you're in business. And if you're doing it with 10 or more, then we're doing more than 10, then you're out of business. Now, what kind of draping of the vine did he do? Did he do a shlaki operation like that from the side, or did he do a legit operation from the top? What are we talking about? So, b'maya skinon ilay mela al gabon.
Is one of these considered the top because it's on the top of the branch, or does it have to be on the top of the tree to be the top? In other words, the left one is obviously from the side, but the right one, is that considered the top because it's top of the branch, or is that still considered both considered the side?
I don't think it has a separate. Doesn't look like it has a separate entity. I don't think so. I think that would still be. I think it would still be part of the tree.
So that both sides being in outside.
Right. Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter if one. It's bad enough just if you have 1 minute outside. In other words, the fact that whether it's one or two doesn't. Yeah, that doesn't matter if the other one wouldn't be. But I think that's not. You have to have a separate, distinct entity that's where the string is on top of it. I don't see any
We have a branch there that's a separate entity.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but it ends at it goes right into the tree, so it's not it doesn't go down to the ground as a separate entity, and it's got to be 10. Alechi's got to be 10 tefachim from the ground up. I don't see how that qualifies. So he says. B'maya skina one more time, and what a case are we talking about where he asked a question? Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri gave this answer. Ilema al gabon, if it was right on top the way it should be, it was a totally legit situation. Yosem eser aser, right? Is really with more than 10 be prohibited? Because after all, we are talking about Klayim right now. We're not talking about Shabbos, and in Klayim apparently, and this was further answer your question, Michael. It does seem clearly that we're about to present a brisa that says more than 10 will be good if it's done properly by Klayim as a Tzuras Pesach. More than 10 is not an issue. Right, so certainly one of the issues is clearly more makel when it comes to Klayim. Vatanya, as it says in the brisa, Hoyisham Kanim Hadukronim. If you had these sort of slanted pegs, Vyosalahen Peya Milmail, and you made these braided vines from the top. Okay, even if it's more than 10, if you did it right way, it was lamaila, so you did it the way it needed to be, even though it wasn't exactly like it was like tapered a little bit. That wouldn't bother me as long as all the shurim are right, everything is good. Even if it's more than 10, it's legit. So there's no way that if it was a perfectly made vine that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri would have answered with the distinction of more than 10 and less than 10, because a perfect Tzuras Pesach. More than 10 certainly works by Klayim, according to everybody. It seems like even Rav, Tosas points out, even Rav would agree now that more than 10, there's not even a discussion that more than 10 would be good. Even though he doesn't like it by Shabbos, he will buy into it by Klayim. He says, Elalav, the only way to understand this is Minatzad, that the case was, he saw Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri hanging that vine from the side, shlakali, okay, and now he asked, can I plant wheat on the other side? Okay, ukamale besim muta yosem eser aser, and he answered back, well, depends. Are you making a Tzuras Pesach where the poles are 10 or less, or are they more than 10? So you see, Shema Mino, indeed you see that...
Poles or the separation of the poles?
Well, what difference is there?
Poles could be the height of the poles versus
the width between the poles. So if So yeah, 10 amas, we never have height 10 amas. So anyway, but the point is that that if it's more than 10 away from each other, then that's going to be a problem. If it's less than 10, it's not going to be a problem. So you see from the Bryce itself that there's justification for Yochanan Nuri's answer in a case where they're from the side. From the top, no one would argue that they're good, and you see from the side. So basically, the presentation we made indeed is legitimized by the brisa that we found to make a difference between more than 10 and less than 10. Shema, we're good to go. Okay, we got to the two dots. Let's catch up on the Rashis. How do you know that when you're doing the vines in the shlaki fashion on the side by client that you can make a distinction between more than 10 and less than 10? So he says, Afapi Shabaki Rabbi Yeshua Bilchas Klayim, even though Rabbi Yeshua person was a Baki in Hilchas Klayim, Shalom Mimenu Davazeh, he still went and asked him this particular issue, which he wanted to get guidance about. So what do you do with Konim? Right, so this is a Bryce. This is the Gemara bringing this Bryce in. So he says, you can't tell me that it was perfectly legit because there would be no dispute. Must be it was from the side, and we see a difference between more than 10. It's slanted like one of these tapered pegs that you stick into the ground. Because if it's a flat, straight peg, it's not going to go in. And then he has a picture of a.
No, that's a taper.
Oh, there. Okay, it's sharpened. Okay, yeah, there you have it. 147. Okay, so that's how it goes into the ground well, and then you make a lechi on the top the way Azavidat's designed, the way it was supposed to. Okay, and there's a difference between more than 10 and less than 10, so we're good to go. Fine. So let's go back. So back to the Gemara. Gufa. So let's go back to an earlier text, an earlier statement that was made by our good friend Rav Chizda. So he says, Gufa, Amr Rav Chizda, Tzuras Pesach, Shasom Menatzad, L'Yosef Leikum. So Rav Chizda was adamant. And this whole Menatzad thing, which now we're sort of reviving in the world of Klayim, he wanted to say that you make a Tzuras Pesach from the side, you've done nothing. Okay, V'yomer of Chizda, that's one statement that we made, that we are referencing from before. Furthermore, Rav Chizda didn't stop there. He said, V'yomer of Chizda, Tzuras HaPesach she'amru, tzricha shetei bria, k'dei lahamid badelas, v'afilu delas shel kashin. The Tzuras HaPesach can't be so flimsy that it couldn't hold a door. It has to be able to hold a door. Now, in other words, even though you're not going to actually have a door, because we don't need doors, if we needed doors for Tzuras HaPesach, all our areas would be messed up, but you don't need it, but it has to be strong enough to be able to put a door on the pole that is the base of Tzuras HaPesach. Okay, and what kind of door? Even a door of kashim. Even a straw door is good enough. We don't need a very thick, heavy door, but even a shvach door would be good. Okay, fine. That's halach number 2 that Rav Chizda told us about the Tzuras HaPesach. And Omer Shlokish, so that doesn't really scare us because most of our poles are going to be strong enough to hold some flimsy nothing door without a straw. That should not pose an issue. Okay. Omer Shlokish, Rav Yanai, Tzuras HaPesach, Tzricha Heker Tzir. Rav Shlokish said, name of Rav Yanai, that the Tzuras HaPesach requires. And here there is notice there's an aleph on the last halacha about needing it to be strong enough to be able to hold straw. But Rav Yan, this halacha, we don't see any letter. It needs to be, you have to have a spot for a sort of like a hinge, right, thank you. A hinge that you can put the little socket into and basically move the door based on that hinge. So you need to have a place for the hinge, an appearance, a recognizable hinge there to make it a viable Tzuras HaPesach, which clearly, again, we don't do this. We don't have any recognition of a hinge there. Okay, let's keep going. My heketzir, what is a heketzir? Rav Avia avaksa. Okay, it's some kind of a place it's a hole for a pivot. You need some kind, what? Oh, thank you. 148. It's always good to look up. Avaksa, right? Chorsh tzira del sovev boy. So you need some kind of hole to put that. It looks like a handle. Okay, so you need a hole to put the handle in to be able to. So what's that? That's to open the door. Oh, in the bottom. Oh, in the bottom. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So you got to have an arrow pointing to it. That's why we need that laser thing, Gary. Let's go. Okay. So
The point there is the door swings on that, pivots on that point is supposed to be hinged.
exactly.
We have one at the top and one at the bottom.
Okay, here doesn't. I don't see the one at the top, but it's good
It's
enough.
only the bottom of the door.
Fine. Okay. Very good. So the bottom, right? So you have hinges. Sometimes you have things on the side that you can connect the door to the side, or like in these cases, you connect the door to the bottom. So you need a hole to fill the pivot in, and again, that's something that we do not have in our Tzuras HaPesachs. So again, indicating that we do not follow this particular requirement. Okay. Okay. Let's catch up in the Rashis. Kedei lahamid badeles kolshu. You need enough a pole strong enough to have even the slightest, most minimal kind of door. Afilu yochel lahamid badeles shel kashin. Die. Even if it's able to hold a door of straw, it's good enough. Kashin shel shibolim. Kashin is like shibolim of grain, of stalk, of shvach grain, very, very light. Avaksa, chur, okay, this is the hole that we just saw the diagram of. Shatzir hadel sovevbo. That the pivot or whatever, the thing coming out of the door circles around and pivots around that particular hole, the thing that goes into the hole, okay, I don't know, some kind of bar or something. Even though it doesn't need the door to be in there, it needs the potential to have the door go into it. The potential is what's necessary. So if you don't have the potential for the door to go into that pivot, then you're in trouble. And again, like I said, we don't require that. Okay, let's proceed. Back to the Gemara. Ashkechinu, right? So I have a little dot there. So right after the word avaksa. So Ashkechinu Rav Acha Breid Rav Avia Tamidei Rav Ashi. So Rav Acha Breid Rav Avia found the students of Rav Ashi. Amalei, and he asked him, Omar Amar Midi B'tzuras HaPesach, did the great Rav Ashi, okay, it was one of the people who put the Gemara together, did he say anything when it comes to the issues of Tzuras HaPesach? Did that something come up where, according to some he's asking specifically about this idea of this bolt in this hole in the pivot there in the floor and on top. Did he say anything about it? Did he mention it was a requirement? And he said zero about it, or he said zero in general. So you can either read this as a general question, or you can read it as a specific question about this issue. And either way, the answer is no comment. He did not say anything about this issue to shed light on it, which according to the first version would mean he doesn't hold it's a problem. Okay, because why else? Why did he say nothing? Must be he holds it's not a big deal. Okay, Rashi, any Rashis here? No Rashis. Okay, weiter. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. Tzuras HaPesach Shamru Kana Mikan v'Kana Mikan v'Kana Al Gabeim.
So wait, did him not saying anything mean he rejected it? Or he was okay with it?
It means he was okay. He rejected halach and was okay with the fact that you didn't have it. Right. That's one version. The other version is it was a general question and he didn't have anything to say, which is a funny. Second shot's a little funny because then why say it? In other words, they asked him a question, then there was no real answer, so why bother record it in the Gemara? So whatever. But there are two pshatim there. Okay. Tana. We learned in the Brisa, Tzuras HaPesach Shamru Kana Mikan v'Kana Mikan v'Kana Al Gabeim. Okay, this is already by now fundamental. You need a pole on one side, a pole on the other side. And you need the goalpost going across, and then you've got yourself a nice Tzuras HaPesach. Okay, Tzrichen Liga o ein Tzrichen Liga. So do they need to touch, right? The age-old question, do they need to touch or do they not need to touch? Can you have the beam elevated above the pole or not? Right? So Rav Nachman Omar ein Tzrichen Liga. Rav Nachman, and there you have your bays, which gives everyone a deep sigh of relief, that they do not have to touch. Okay, Rav Sheish on the other hand says, no, Tzrichen Liga. They do have to touch. Well, these fellows were passionate. It makes you appreciate what went on there in Brooklyn there that time when they were fighting about Eruvs. The stuff can get pretty emotional. So Azur of Nachman Yovad Uvda Beireish Galus. Rav Nachman, who was very often the man to guide the Reish Galusa in halacha. So he went and he followed his opinion that they don't have to touch. Okay, and he made an Eruv for the Reish Galusa with a string or a pole across that did not touch the side post, following his opinion. Azor of Sheshis or Shamei, so Rav Sheshis walked around one day and saw the Reish Galusa's Eruv and said, "This is an Eruv. It's not an Eruv. Not in Borough Park. No, it's not going to happen." So what did he do? He sent his Rav Sheshis or Shamei Rav Gada, and he said to Rav Gada, his shamish there, Zil Shaloif Shadinu. Take it out, go take it out and throw it away. This is not an acceptable Eruv. This is not, it's not happening. Okay, Azul Shalaf Shadinu. So he went and it did like a good Talmud. He went and listened to his Rebbe and he said, sit on the Tel Aviv highway and just throw it out. Anyway, so Ashkechuhu, the Beireish Galusa, the Beireish Galusa found him doing basically damage to the Reish Galusa's Eruv, not listening to Rav Nachman and throwing out the poles. Chavshua. They threw him in jail. Okay, what do you do when you block the highway? You end up in jail.
No, not anymore.
What, not anymore? Okay. Azar of Sheshis. So Sheshis went, Come Ababa. So he went to the door of the jail. He says, Omalei Gada, it's amazing times, the way this thing went down. Omalei Gada, Poik Ta. Gada, come out of jail. Okay, you're coming with me, we're going home, and you did nothing wrong, and you followed my advice. So let him out of jail. And sure enough, Nafak V'yoso. Okay, so he came and he went with Rav Sheshes. They went home together. He says, so Ashkei Rav Sheshes Rabbi Bar Shmuel. So on the way home, Rav Sheshes found Rabbi Bar Shmuel. Amalei Tani Mar Midi B'Tzuras Pesach. Did you learn anything in the area of Tzuras Pesach that can maybe shed light on anything that we're concerned about? Amalei In. Yes, I did. And let me tell you what I learned. Tanina, I learned in a Brisa, Kippah, if you have an archway, a nice archway, which is the next diagram, 150, okay, is that a valid Tzuras Pesach to require a mezuzah or not? As you walk through that, and this happens in Eretz Yisrael, right? You see a lot of those in Eretz Yisrael. Do you have to put a mezuzah on the side of that? Pretty tricky how to put a mezuzah into the side of it. But the kash is, do you or don't you? So kippah, Rav Meir mechayv mezuzah v'cham pochim. So a kippah, an archway, Rav Meir says you are mechuyev in a mezuzah, and the chum say you're not mechuyev in a mezuzah. The shavin, but they both agree, shem yesh b'ragleh asara. If at its base you have 10 tfachim going up straight before the archway starts, here it's an archway that's arching from the bottom, right? So it begins the arch immediately. But there's certain archways that the sides are straight up, and then the sides are straight up, and then the arch begins. So if it's in its feet, you have 10 shichayeves. There's going to be no dispute. And you're going to be chayiv in a mezuzah if there's first 10. There's no diagram for the getting off on 10. If you get 10 to start off and then the archway begins, there you have it. Okay, then you're good to go. The only question is, you're good to go. At least you have the sides, right? You see the side, but how about your top? So where's your top? So let's see Rashi. They're gonna the Rishonim learn the top is the top all the way on top. So what does that show you? Because if you can't use if you're see, by schach it would work. If you have like a slanted schach that looks like a igloo, that would work. But here you need a flat top. Where's your flat top that's going to cover the two side posts, each one of 10 tefachim? And the answer is, they say that stuff on top, the straight bricks on top is going to be your, right? You see in that particular diagram 153, right? See 153.
I think we're into 151.
No, but 151 has the 10 amos before the curve.
Right.
But the question, I'm asking different. No, the 153 is good mitzad the 10 on the side. The two side posts are good. But where's your top? Where's
the side posts aren't good on 153.
What?
The side posts aren't good on 153. Only 3. It's only 3.
Well, okay. I'm not looking at the 3. Okay, I'm sorry, but Okay, you're on 151, but still, 151 is a problem. Where is your top? The top is a slant. Answer the question, Frank. Where's your top?
151.
Where's the top for 150?
I think he's still on 153.
No, he's not. He's
Which one are you on now?
Okay, okay, I'm in 151. 151, Pashas will not work because you don't have...
A flat top.
You don't have the horizontal bar.
Right, you don't have a thank you. You don't have a horizontal bar. So,
Where the 10 ends.
right, so the only way you could have a horizontal bar if the structure was such...
Couldn't you draw the same dotted lines you do on 153 from 151?
Ignore 153. It's a totally different case. Just
No, but I'm saying, but at 151...
blinders,
you-
153.
It's on a different case. Lagabe the top, it's on a different case.
There's nothing straight to. You
153
can't
is
get a straight line
Kirkuk.
out
It's
of
a
that.
totally different halacha.
What, you can...
Yeah, now we're focusing on that. We're focusing on where do you have your bar? Okay, let's see Rashi.
It's
Let's
showing you that it's 4 on the inside.
Look, we're gonna have to raise the bar at one point or another anyway.
okay, let's see Rashi. Let's see
Now we're
Rashi.
lowering it.
Yeah, actually, Michael's more right. We're going to end up lowering it. Okay, actually, no, you don't actually lower it. You just, it's good enough that you don't lower it. Okay, let's keep it that way. Okay, so of the
The structure.
yeah, so tzricha liga.
There's no structure to put it inside.
Yeah, so
It's above it, because it's already shown.
let's see Rashi. Tzricha liga konashal gabon lo konash b'tzadon or afilu tulil mailamen bavir. What's the story? Is it good enough that you just have it hanging in the air, or does it have to touch? So of the Beireish Galusa, Shehekif Lahati Rechav Latalta Ba, okay, that he made an Eruv around the area there to Lahati Rechav to be matter his backyard to carry in it. He also been Psachim Harbein, he made many openings. He also has some more than 10. Peya, and they made this, the nice vines that went across. Well, no Gulakanim Shomata. It did not reach the reeds below, the poles below. So was that good or not? So Rav Nachman says not a problem. Rav Sheshes says it was a problem, and we know the story. Now, what about a kippah? Shara Asuki, but it's a gate. It's an opening, a gateway that is shaped like a arch. V'cham potrin. Meshulamayla be eagle who meitzar, because above in the area of the when the arch comes over the thing, it narrows. Vein a rochav arba, and it's not 4 tfachim wide. Vein pesach psucha midal rochav, and because it starts narrowing, you don't have that 4 right. Because we know the minimum shear of Tzuras Pesach is at least 10 tfachim high, okay, and 4 tfachim wide. If it narrows, now think about that. When you have exactly 4 tfachim and the archway starts to narrow, then you don't have any area at least equal to 4 to make it wide enough to be a valid. We'll get more into this probably tomorrow. We don't have enough length to make the pole on top good. So the shovin, or the beam on top, however you want to call it, the shovin, however, says the Gemara, they both agree that if shim yesh bragla asara goiva kadim shiaschalo agel, if you have 10 tfachim of side flat, straight up side posts before it starts getting narrower and starts to arch, chayeves. Why? The yesh basara goiva brachav, because for the poles of 10 you're good to go because you have 10 high and 4 wide. I feel called eagle sasum nishasham shir pesach kosher. Because even if the entire archway, where it begins to narrow, is closed up, it remains a shear of an opening, of a valid opening. Alma ein tzricha liga. Right? Now, if you fill up that whole thing, what would you have? You'd have a big flat beam that is that's 4 tfachim wide, even though it's not mamish resting on. I mean, I think they learned pshat that basically because on top of the arch you have. So you take a look at Rashi's diagram, right? Take a look at Rashi's diagram. So you have the flat covering on top that's good enough to be able to justify it being good. So 1 second. One more time. Even if the entire archway was closed up, nishasham shir pesach kosher. Alma ein tzrich chaliga. So you see from here they don't have to actually touch the post. Shira the Pesach Baraglahi, because the valid part of the opening is at its feet, at its base. Vigel mafsik bein tikra el yoina lemezuzos, and the archway separates from the beam on top to the mezuzah on the bottom, and still says you're obligated. So I think at the end of the day, I don't know if Ephraim, it sounds like Ephraim did not mean this, I don't know, but it sounds like what Rashi is saying is there is a smooth part on top, you ignore the arch, you go with the stuff on top, and the stuff on top is flat, and that would justify it being valid, like similar to what you have in the diagram over here, we have a smooth block of space above the diagram, above the archway to justify the Shus Pesach. We'll pick this up tomorrow.